Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Zoom mini crop for, what day is it? Saturday, July 17th. I should know that because it is Tim Holt's new color release day. So make sure you tune in at noon on his YouTube channel. He's going to be announcing a new distress color. But in the meantime, I'm going to play with a few other colors, and we are going to create a really fun little summer treat box. And the mechanism of the treat box is something that you are going to be able to use for lots of different things, just depending on how you decorate it. But today we're going to decorate it to look like popsicles because it's hot out there and we need something cool and fresh for our crafting. So if you are joining me live, please feel free to unmute if you have questions, but I also have the chat open. If you are watching on replay, pause, rewind, do whatever you need to do as we move along. I'm actually going to make 3 of these treat boxes at the same time. Because if you're doing one, you might as well do a couple. And I couldn't decide whether I wanted to do orange, yellow, or pink. So this way I will do one of each. It's also good practice when you're learning something for the first time to do it a couple of times, so that this will help us in that respect as well. These are actually my extra paper. So I chose Simple Stories paper today. I really like the bright, vibrant colors. So I'm using orange, sunshine, and pink, but you can use whatever, I'm going to call them flavors, you want for your popsicles. I'm going to just tuck this off to the side in case I need it later on. The main mechanism of this little treat box is basically we're going to create a matchbox. And it's going to have a bottom portion that you could put a little gift card or a treat or something inside. And then the outer bit is just going to slide on and off. So that's what we're going to need the colored paper for when we get to that step. Other thing I'm going to show you is if you have real popsicle sticks, that's fantastic. I couldn't lay my hands on any clean popsicle sticks or sticks that didn't have ice cream still on it. So I'm just going to use some paper and use a faux wood grain technique, which some of you have seen before, but it's really a fast and easy way that you can create a wood grain look for your popsicle stick or anything else that you might do. All right, let's get started. I'm starting with my white cardstock, my neutral. This is going to be for that box base. And I've got my little template with my measurements here. Oh, I did have the right one up the first time. So this piece should be cut at 5 inches wide by 7 1/4 inches tall. And we're going to do some basic scoring. It's actually really quite simple. However, I do apologize. We are going to be dealing with 1/8 of an inch. And in, I think, one case on the outside, we have a 1/16 of an inch. But I'm going to show you how we're going to fudge that. And I think we'll still be a-okay. So I'm just going to start with 1. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. If I'm going too fast, ladies, please tell me to slow down. I'm happy to go over things again. We'll score and prep all 3 of our bottoms, or at least I'm going to. If you're doing more than 1, then let's do them together. If you're only doing 1, then just hang on while we finish everything else. If you wish, you could also just grab a really scrap piece of paper and make a template as we have done in the past. I didn't plan for that because I've got a nice computerized template, which I can also post or send to anybody who wants that so that you can keep in your files. Alrighty, let's get rocking. I'm going to take my 5 by 7 1/4 piece of paper and I'm going to put it in vertical in my scoreboard. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to score the right side, then rotate it 180 degrees and do the same measurements again. So my first score line is at 3 7/8. That's 3 7/8. Let me right there, 3 7/8, and then the second one will be 4 1/2. So there, they're written up here for you. So 3 7/8 all the way down. Remember, don't push too hard on that first one or you could end up cutting right through your paper. So 3 7/8 and then 4 1/2. And I'm going to flip it all the way around. So it's still going to be vertical, but now your score lines are on the left. And we're going to do 3 7/8 and 4 1/2 again. And you know what? Because we're in the vertical groove, let's just keep it simple and keep it easy. I'm going to do my verticals on my other two pieces as well. So 3 7/8, 4 1/2. Did I do that one right? Yeah, okay. 4 1/2. And this is definitely one of those projects that once you make a couple, it's really, really easy to assembly line and do do a whole bunch all at once. So 3 7/8, 4 1/2. And by the time you're done, you'll have all of those measurements memorized. And I'm going to do my third one just while we're here. So 3 7/8, 4 1/2. I remember making boxes like these, so 3 7/8 for gifts at a retreat. And so I think I had to make something like 60 or 70 of them. And I just took it in steps. I spent one, evening just doing all the scoring and trimming. The other evening I did the bottom assembly, and you just take it in steps all the way through and you can get them done really, really quickly and easy. Yes, Jan, absolutely. I can send you the template. If anyone wants, so I will post it in the Papercrafts inner circle. I will, when it gets uploaded to YouTube, I think I can include a link. I will try that. Otherwise, just email me at customerservice@craftersworkshop.ca and I'll happily send you the template that I've got. Okay, so we've got all three of our pieces with the vertical scoring. Let's rotate it 90 degrees now. We're going to do the horizontal scoring. So the horizontal lines are at, so this was vertical. Horizontal is 6 1/8 and 6 3/4. So those are the two score lines. And again, we're going to do it on the right, flip it around and repeat again. So 6 1/8. 6 3/4. And if you can see that, you're making these little tiny boxes in your corners, and we're going to trim out some of those pieces to form the box. But that's really what these score lines are doing, is helping us build a nice, sturdy little matchbox. So once again, 6 1/8, 6 3/4. And switch. So base number 2, 6 1/8, 6 3/4. And if you are good at math or have a little bit of patience, if you want to make your boxes different sizes, you can use this same kind of format or formula. Because once again, whatever you do to the right side, you do to the left side. And these are approximately the same width. This top one is a little bit smaller than this one, and it's the same all the way around, so that when we fold it, you don't get any buckling or any pieces that don't fold nicely. But as long as you start with your middle measurement, and if you wanted, say, a 3 by 4 box, then you add on the next width and you add on the next width. Again, it takes a little bit of patience, and that's why I like using a template. But if you are crafty that way and can figure out the math, or you have someone in your life who can figure out the math for you, as I do with my Charlie, then you can make whatever size you want. Okay, enough enough chit chat. Let's do our last one here. So 6 1/8 and 6 3/4. Flip it all the way around, 6 1/8, 6 3/4. All right, so if you have followed along with me, you should have 3 box bases. Our next step is to do some cutting and then we can form our boxes. But while we have our scoreboard out, let's flip over to our pattern paper or our colored paper, I guess I should be more specific. And let's get that scoring done as well. And then we can put our scoreboards away. Okay, so for this, our pattern paper or our colored paper should be measuring 5 1/4 by 7 3/8. And I will be fully transparent and say I fudged that a little bit. According to the template, it should be 5 1/16. And actually, even at 5 1/4, that might be a bit big. So all this means is that our little slidey piece on our box is going to be a little bit longer than our box because 1/16 of an inch are tricky. If you feel like you want to, when we're done our scoring, trim it down, you can. Because we're going to be adding the stick on the popsicle and everything else, I didn't feel like it hurt to have our lid be a little bit bigger. But once we get moving along, we can see if we want to make any alterations that way. It's like a haircut. I'd rather have it bigger and be able to trim off. Once it's cut, we can't add on. So it's a lot easier to do it with a little bit bigger. And with this one, we are only doing, so we're going to put our paper in horizontal and we're only going to do one set of scoring. We do not have to turn it vertical after the fact. Okay, so we are going to score at, so this was box base. I'm going to call this the sleeve. On the first pass, we are going to score at 3 1/4. Now the next measurement is 3 15/16. And I don't know about you, it depends on your scoreboard. I don't actually have 1/16 of an inch on my scoreboard. So I'm just going to score it at 4. And I think I'm pretty confident we are going to be okay. And then I am going to score at 6 3/4. So we'll start with that, 3 1/4, 4, 6 3/4. 1/16 of an inch are so teeny tiny that I really feel confident that we're not going to have any issues whatsoever. So we're going to do 3 1/4. We're going to do 4. And then we're going to do 6 3/4. And so that's making our box top, the side. We're going to do one more score line over here in a second. But this is to give us the height of our box sleeve. So now we got to do one more score line. We're going to flip it 180 degrees and we are going to score it at 7. So I'm going to write flip and then 7 inches. And that's just giving us a little lip that will allow us to attach things together. This is going to go like this. And I'm feeling like something's not quite right there. So we may need to do some adjustments. And that's not because I made an adjustment, because 1/16 of an inch shouldn't make that much of a difference. Thinking on the fly. So when we do our next one, and if you need to recut another piece of paper, I'm going to try doing this at 3.5. So if you want to wait and let me see how this works out, we will go back and we can fix that as we go along. So let's do 3.5 for, what did I say, 6 3/4. And you know what? That's where sometimes using a template isn't always the easiest thing to do. And then flip it here, and we're going to do it at 7. Because what we want is we want these two pieces to nest together. Okay, you know what? I'm going to form a box. So let's skip this step for now. And I apologize that this is not going as planned, but you know what? We're just going to roll with it. Let's form a box, and then maybe I can do some math and figure out how to do these properly, because I don't think that these measurements are working out. All right, so reset. We are going back to our box base. What we want to do with our box base, we want to grab our scissors, and we are going to snip along these lines here. And then these lines here. So we're cutting the width of 2 of these little squares. And then we will then go back and we're going to cut this way as well. So what that's going to do is this piece is going to fall away. Actually, and so here, and this one's only going part way. Yeah, so this piece is going to fall away, this piece is going to fall away, and this piece is going to fall away, and all we're going to be left with is this little tab that's going to help us form our box. So if it helps you to draw them on your, no, I did that totally wrong. Good thing it's going to be hidden. So the inside one is just 1 square and the outside one is 2 squares. We want little tabs. And all of your pencil marks are going to be hidden inside the box, or pen marks, as in my case. And then we're going to come down and do this. Just following those score lines. All the way across. As long as that little tab can fold free, you're good to go. 1. And again, while we've got our scissors out, let's go ahead and do the same thing to all of our bases that we have prepared. Again, if you feel like you would like to draw on your lines, go right ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and snip, because this is one of those ones where once you get in the rhythm, it's pretty good. So over here, and then snip and snip. Snip and snip. And repeat. So once again, you've got kind of this funky geometric shape where you've got all these little tabs that are going to fold up when we form the box. Let's quickly do our last one. Snip and snip. And again, if you're assembly lining these, this is a good step to do in front of the TV. As long as you don't snip your fingers. And the last one. All right, I'm gonna get rid of my little scrappy scraps here into my trash can. Let's go back to the one that I've got all my drawing lines. So now we're going to assemble. So if you have your tape runner or your score tape, I do like to use my score tape on these to make sure that certain pieces get stuck down, but other pieces you can just use your tape runner. You absolutely can use liquid glue as well. Just know that you may have to sit and hold it for a little bit until the pieces set. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fold in on all my score lines in towards the center of the box. Oh, looks like I missed a snip here. So everything's folding inwards. And maybe you can start to see where we're going with this. So these little tabs here are going to fold in and they are going to attach to the side. So it's these little tabs are what is going to connect the end panel to the side panel. And then the extra little flaps are just going to fold over to give it a really nice finish. So before I go any further, I'm going to apply my score tape to those outer panels. So this is on those outer strips and I'm just putting it right along the fold. If you've got tape that's wide enough to cover the whole area, that's awesome. If you've got skinnier tape than I do, maybe do a couple of rows. But just now those are ready because once those sides start to get formed, it's hard to put the tape on. I'm going to grab my pokey tool for when I need to peel that tape. And like I said, for my little tabs, I'm just going to use my tape runner. So here is my little trick for doing this. I'm going to fold my tab in. I'm going to put my tape on. And then I'm going to make my corner. So you can see my little tab inside there. And it's lined up on that outside corner. Let's see if that can focus a little bit better. There we go. It's got a nice sharp corner there on that tab. And I'm just going to repeat for all four corners. So fold my tab in, apply my tape. And it's okay that this is just temporary. And this is why I like to use the tape runner as opposed to the score tape. So if I don't get it perfectly flush, I can undo it and get it nice and set. I also know that these tabs are going to fold over and lock it in. So I'm not worried about it coming undone. Okay, and this is where it starts to get tricky. I'm going to come this way just so, because I'm right-handed, fold my tab in. Apply my tape, build my corner, and repeat for our last corner here. And up. So this is what your box should look like now. You've still got these panels that have your soup wing tape ready to go. And now we're just going to we're going to unstick the tape and we're going to fold it over to lock in those tabs. So peel my backing. I'll lock it in, give it a good burnish along the top. Peel my tape, fold it over, and lock it in. Peel my tape, fold it over and lock it in. And my last one is good to go. And your box may look a little wonky at first because we've been playing with it and pushing it around, but you can just kind of fold along those score lines to sharpen up those edges. And there is your little base. How are we doing for time? We're moving right along. Okay, let's do one more. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to reduce down and just do two, especially since we've got some math to do. But let's go ahead and just for practice, let's prep and assemble our second box. Your third one, if you're following along with me, you can do that for homework. Okay, just folding, folding, folding. Okay, Sukwang. On those outer panels. Outer panel. Outer panel. Outer panel. And then we're going to do fold in our tab, add our tape runner, build our corner. I don't know if you ladies are like me, but when you do stuff like this, I tend to talk to myself, even when I'm not on camera, and just walk my brain through the steps that I have to make. Matt can attest, sometimes I sing it. Sometimes I just make up little rhymes and, you know, all those things we do when we're in our craft room by ourselves. And our last one here. All right, we're moving. This is looking good. Hopefully everybody is still with me. I see a couple of thumbs up. That's good. Okay, let's peel and lock. Peel and lock. Peel and lock. Peel and lock. Now, absolutely, if you have scraps left over, or if you're feeling creative and adventurous, you could decorate the inside of the box as well. Every surface is up for grabs when it comes to decorating and creativity, but I'm just going to leave them nice and white for today. Even if you just stamped like a little message in there, or use that to, if you were giving this in lieu of a card, for example, you could write your message in here. Probably if you're handwriting, and maybe even if you're stamping, you might want to do that before you form your box, depending on your size, because sometimes those sides make it a little difficult. All right, now is where I'm going to do some math. I don't have a pencil, so I'm just going to use my pen. All right, bear with me as I figure this out. So this panel is correct. So that was where we went from the outside edge to 3 1/4. This panel is correct. So that is where we went from the other end and did the 7 inches. It's this middle guy that is, though, hang on. Okay. So 3 1/4 then should have gone to the ruler. I'm going to say it should be 3 3/4. So if I do that, and I apologize, you know what? Maybe it's possible that I just measured wrong the first time, because my 6 3/4 is right. My 4 is right. This one I did at 3. It should have been 3 1/4. So all that math for no reason. That looks much better. Okay. You guys all still with me? Nods, thumbs up, smiles. Thank you for pairing with me. You know what? Sometimes we just make boo-boos and we have to figure it out. So I'm going to go to my nice, crisp orange one here. I will have to recut my pattern paper, but that's okay. It's paper. Let's try this one more time and let's actually do it correctly. So I'm going to scribble this out. We are going to score at 3 1/4. Yeah, 3 1/4. We're going to score at 4. And we're going to score at 6 3/4. Let's double check. 3 1/4, 4, 6 3/4. We're going to flip. And we're going to score at 7. All right, and if we fold inwards, fold inwards, fold inwards, fold inwards, and before I tape it, there you go. It's perfect. So the template was right. Operator was wrong. All fixable. Okay, so let's tape this guy together and then it's ready to go. And this is where I was saying I made that extra bit a little bit longer because that way if we've got our stick coming out of it, we've got a little bit of room to play. But if you want to trim it down a little bit, by all means, now is the time to do it. And I think I'm going to take just a smidgen off. So right here, I'm at 5 1/4. I'm going to split the difference and I'm going to cut it at 5 1/8. So I'm really just shaving off 1/8 of an inch. Okay, let's glue this baby together. So if you're looking at the inside of your colored panel, you will have one little scored area that is wider than the other one. Put the narrower one on your right, the skinny one on the right. I'm going to fold that in, and that's where I'm going to put my score tape. So this is on the skinny scored area. Fold it in and put down your tape. Give it a rub. I'm going to peel it off. And then this is where that wider panel is going to fold over and the edge is going to go right along that fold. And you can fold it back and forth, crease it on your fold lines. And if we've done this right, voila. So now we've got our box. Now we've got our sleeve. How do we make it look like a popsicle? Well, my goal is to make it look like one of those ones. Now, I'm not going to actually round my corners, but I'm going to apply 2 little strips. And I need to trim mine down a little bit. So now we're starting to look more like that popsicle where it's got the little indented ridges around the stick. I'm going to use some distress ink just to make it a little bit darker. And like I said, I do need to trim mine down maybe about 1 inch. So right now this is 5 1/4. I'm going to trim it down to 4 1/4, which if I remember correctly, when I sent the email, those are the measurements I told you to do. So those are ready. I'm going to grab. What have I got? I've got spice marmalade. That looks like a pretty good match here. Grab a tool. And I'm simply going to darken these guys up. I think I'm also going to do, so my paper has dots on one side and solid on the other. I'm going to do the solid side just to emphasize that contrast. All I'm doing is going to add some ink. It's very monochromatic, but it's just going to make, oops, try not to fold it like I did. It's just going to add that little bit of depth and contrast. If your matching ink color is a little bit darker, that's even better. So now that's going to really stand out against the box. And once again, this is where you can get creative if you want to do a rainbow blend, if you've used white paper or a lighter color paper. So those are getting closer. Just gonna grab a baby wipe because I'm now all inky. The next step is a choice. Because my box is pretty square, I could leave my strips square, but I think I'm gonna try my corner rounder. My strips might be too skinny, but let's see. I'm gonna try rounding up the corners so that they look, oh, this is actually a really good size. That's coming together. So these can now just get stuck down onto my box and they look like the little dimples that are on a typical popsicle stick. Now let's use some liquid glue for this one just so it's nice and flat. I think this is the same one last week that I tried that didn't want to work. Stick the second one down. I'm going to take my box out just so I can kind of press, make sure everything's sticking down to the paper and not curling. There we go. We'll get there. 2 more steps to go, and then our popsicle is done. Our next thing we need to do is our stick. So I have some extra cardstock left over from when I was cutting my boxes. These are about 1 inch. I'm not going to cut it to length just yet because I'm going to ultimately double it over just to give it a little bit more strength. But here is where our faux wood technique comes into play. I'm going to grab my vintage photo brown ink. You can use any brown ink, or if you want a different color, by all means, use whatever color you want. And I'm simply going to drag, and you may have to do this in a couple of steps just so you can hold it. I'm just dragging my ink pad on my paper in that vertical motion. And now it's starting to give those little grainy wood grain lines that you would typically see on a popsicle stick. And don't worry that you can see some of these other lines. How many times have we seen some of those popsicle sticks that look funky? And that's really all there is to a wood grain kind of plank look. If you wanted to add a second color, you could. I'm going to just keep it really simple today. And like I said, I want to double it up to give it a little bit of strength. So I'm simply going to fold it in half. And let's just glue it together. And just like with our little strips here, if you want it to be a nice little rounded popsicle stick, you can round your corners. The double thickness might not work as well, but at least that way I've got my lines and I can wrap it. And then I'm going to stick this inside my sleeve, maybe about 1 inch or so. And again, this is where your strip of paper and how long you want your popsicle stick to be will determine how far you stick it in, or if you would rather trim it off, you can. I'm going to just use a couple of little pieces of score tape because I want my stick to stick. No pun intended. Come on. Oh, I'm just sticking to everything today. There we go. And that's going to stick inside my sleeve, centered as much as possible. Oh, and I'm a little crooked, of course. There we go. And now your box can slide in on top of that. The mechanics of your popsicle stick are done. I'm going to add one last little accenty thing. I have my Glossy Accents. Now this will take a while to dry, so make sure it's absolutely the last thing you do. But it's going to come out. Maybe I won't be doing glossy accents today, but let's see if we can give this Glossy Accents are tricky when it comes to clogging. All right, so you're going to get the theory of it. I was going to cover this whole area with Glossy Accents to make it look shiny. And you could even sprinkle a little glitter on there as well. What else do I have in my bag of tricks? Let's see if I've got an alternative. Oh. Here's another bottle. Let's see if this one will work. There we go. So I would start by doing an outline. And then filling in the space. And I'm not necessarily squeezing a very thick layer. I'm actually just using the nozzle to kind of move it around because you don't want it to be too thick or it'll take 3 years to dry. Not to mention use up a lot of Glossy Accents. But you do want it to be smooth and not have any bubble areas. There we go. And once again, fill it all in. Almost like flooding a cookie. If you do royal icing with cookies or other baking, you're just flooding and filling in the areas and making sure you don't have any bubbles. And so this will dry nice and clear and shiny and give you some real dimension. There, it's looking shiny on the camera. It's still a little milky because it's drying, but there you go. So thank you for joining me for the ride today. I know we were a little bit bumpy on a couple of areas due to, lack of coffee and a boo-boo that we all make, but we recovered and we had lots of fun. So I would love to see what popsicles you make. Feel free to post them in the group. And thank you for tuning in.